The air in the Wayfarer's Rest was thick with the smells of 100 species and the low hum of translated conversations. At a small corner table, a human man sat staring into a glass of amber liquid. His name was Leo, and his solitude was a palpable thing, a quiet bubble in the noisy tapestry of the Galactic Port Tavern. He was looking, without truly seeing, at the performer on the low stage, that she was of the Cathari, a people renowned for their delicate beauty and the empathic resonance of their art. Her skin held the soft luminescence of a pearl, and fine, silvery filaments, like captured starlight, traced patterns along her temples and neck. She was singing, not with words, but with pure tonal melodies that seemed to bypass the ears and speak directly to the emotional core of any who listened. To Leo, adrift in a sea of impersonal stars and metal hulls, it felt like a lifeline. He came every night she performed. He never spoke, only listened, feeling the ache in his chest ease slightly under the gentle ministrations of her song. It was a foolish thing, he knew. A human mechanic and a Cathari vocalist were planets orbiting different stars. Yet a yearning had taken root, quiet but stubborn. On this night, as her final note faded into a silence more profound than any applause, she did not immediately retreat to the back. Her large, dark eyes, depthless as space itself, scanned the room and settled on him. She had noticed the quiet human in the corner, the constancy of his attendance. With a grace that seemed like a slow fall in low gravity, she stood and walked to his table. "May I join you?" Her voice was a whisper of sound, yet perfectly clear. Leo's heart performed a complicated maneuver against his ribs. He nodded, gesturing to the empty chair. "Please." She sat, folding her slender hands on the table. "You listen," she said. "Truly listen. It is a rare gift you offer an artist." "It's a rare gift you offer us," Leo managed to reply. "Your music. It feels like coming home. I don't know how else to say it." A soft light seemed to brighten within her pearl-like skin. "That is the intention, to bridge the silence between souls." She regarded him. "You are alone here, far from your world. Assignment on the orbital dock. Freighter mechanic." He shrugged. "It's quiet work. But the quiet outside does not always match the quiet inside," she observed gently. Her empathy was not a rumor. It seemed, but a fact. They talked. Her name was Ilara. She was on a cultural exchange, sharing Cathari art along the trade routes. He spoke of Earth, of oceans and mountains, things she knew only from dataphiles. She spoke of the crystalline forests of her homeworld, and how song shaped the very growth of the flora. The tavern emptied around them, the lights dimming, but their conversation was a bright, warm stream in the growing dark. For Leo, it was a revelation. He had known her music was beautiful, but her mind was captivating. Her laughter was a soft, chime-like sound. Her curiosity was genuine. The gulf between species, so vast in the biology texts, felt trivial here at this table. The feeling within him swelled from a yearning to a profound, aching certainty. He did not just admire her. In the space of a single stolen evening, he had fallen, completely and irrevocably. It was a dangerous, impossible feeling. Protocols, customs, biological realities stood like fortress walls. But looking at her, at the gentle understanding in her eyes, the walls felt made of mist. The manager coughed politely, indicating closing time. They rose together, the spell momentarily broken by mundane reality. He walked her to the private residential module sector, the corridors silent, but for the hum of life support at her door. She turned to him. "Thank you, Leo, for the conversation, for seeing the artist and the person." This was it. The moment would pass, and tomorrow she might be gone, transferred to the next port. The thought was a cold void. The words, and up behind a lifetime of restraint and practicality, fought to break free. He knew it was irrational. He knew it could shatter this fragile connection. But the alternative, silence and regret, was worse. He took a shallow breath, his voice dropping to a hushed, fervent whisper meant for her alone. "I wish I could wed you." He braced for confusion, for polite withdrawal, for the gentle letdown that would be its own kind of agony. Ilara did none of those things. She did not startle. The luminous patterns on her skin did not flare in alarm. Instead, her smile, which had been warm, blossomed into something radiant, an expression of pure, unshadowed joy that seemed to light the entire corridor. She stepped closer, her dark eyes holding his with an intensity that stole his breath. "Then you shall," she said. Her chime-like voice, full of a certainty that shook the foundations of his world. Leo could only stare. "But how?" "The differences. You think in terms of contracts and ceremonies," Ilara said, her smile softening. "My people think in terms of resonance. A bond is not a document. It is a harmony. You have listened to my song, and I have heard yours in the spaces between your words. Your wish was not a request. It was a tuning fork, struck true, and it resonated with my own heart," she explained, there in the quiet hallway. For the Cathari, profound emotional alignment, mutually recognized and voiced, was the union. The wish, spoken with pure intent and met with accepted resonance, was the bond. Everything else was celebration, a sharing of the harmony with community. But the core event was this moment, right here. You are saying, "We are ready." Leo could not finish. "Joined," she said, nodding. "If you accept the resonance. If my yes is the answer you truly sought." The reality of it crashed over him, not as a wave of fear, but as a dawn of incredible, terrifying light. It was not human. It was alien in the most beautiful way possible. It asked for no permissions, required no officials. It asked only for truth and courage. "I do," he said, the words feeling more solemn and real than any vow he could imagine. "I absolutely do." The celebration, as Ilara called it, was held 2 days later in the ship's central arboretum. Word had spread with surprising speed. Crew members from a dozen species, dock workers, traders, and even the stern station commander gathered. There were no licenses, no officiants. Ilara simply stood before their gathered friends and began to sing. This song was different. It was not a performance for an audience. It was an invocation, a weaving. As she sang, she reached for Leo's hand. Her filaments glowed, and a faint, warm resonance passed from her skin to his, a gentle vibration that settled in his bones. She was singing their harmony, the melody of their meeting, their conversation, his whispered wish and her joyful answer. And then she guided him to join. Not to sing, for he had no gift for melody, but to speak. To tell the story, in his own plain words, of the lonely mechanic in the tavern and the music that found him. As he spoke, her voice wove around his words, elevating them, translating their emotional truth into a universal language of sound. It was a duet of voice and soul to the humans present. It was moving, strange, beautiful. To the Cathari musicians who had come with Ilara, it was a ceremony of breathtaking intimacy. To the other aliens, it was a fascinating glimpse into a profound cultural truth. When it was done, there was a silence. Then, Ilara leaned forward and pressed her forehead to Leo's, a Cathari gesture of deepest connection. "Our song is written," she whispered, for him alone. "Now we must play it every day." Life did not become a simple fairy tale. Leo still repaired engines, his hands stained with coolant and carbon. Ilara still performed. They lived in his practical quarters, which she slowly filled with strange singing crystals that responded to emotion. He learned to cook food her biology could tolerate. She learned to appreciate his terrible taste in historical flat-screen dramas. The challenges were real. There were stares. There were bureaucratic headaches about interspecies cohabitation permits, which they had to obtain retroactively, much to the confusion of the authorities, who could find no marriage certificate. There were moments of misunderstanding, gaps of culture that their bond had to bridge, but always there was the residence. When he was frustrated, she would hum a low, stabilizing tone that eased his tension. When she felt distant, sad for her crystalline forests, he would describe Earth's oceans with such vivid, loving detail that she felt less adrift. Their bond was not a magical fix, but a constant, gentle tuning. A promise to listen, to harmonize. One evening, months later, they sat in their quarters. The viewport showed the infinite starfield. Alara was idly threading her luminous filaments through his calloused fingers, creating a soft, pulsing light. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked quietly. "The way it happened?" Humans often dream of grand ceremonies, of traditions. Leo looked at their joined hands, at the light that seemed to belong to both of them now. He thought of the lonely man in the tavern, whispering an impossible wish into the dark. "No," he said, his voice firm with certainty. "Not for a second. They have their ceremonies. We have our song. I wished for you, and you said yes. That's the only tradition that matters." Alara's smile was that same radiant, joyful expression from the corridor, the one that had changed everything. She leaned her head on his shoulder, and together they watched the stars, two different notes that had found a perfect, enduring chord.